It is supposed to snow on Sunday in Athens, but last night it was raining threes in the Convocation Center.
We will be talking men's basketball, women's basketball, and much more on this edition of Ohio Sports Zone.
Last weekend, the softball team competed in the Indiana Classic, and after losing in extra innings to Drake 5-4, they ended up winning their next three, including a thriller where they shut out Drake 4-0 in the tournament final Sunday night. Savannah Jo Dorsey got MAC East pitcher honors, and she deserved it. 17 1/3 innings pitched over 3 appearances, 2 starts, both of which were complete games, and she had 30 strikeouts over the course of the weekend.
Yeah, you talk about how stellar Dorsey was over this weekend. And last year she suffered that biceps injury that shortened her year a little bit. Do you think that she can get back on the level that where she was 2 years ago when she was named second team All-MAC?
Savannah Jo Dorsey is now a redshirt sophomore because last year ended up being a medical redshirt issue for her. And if you look at what she's doing now, she has really amplified what she did as a freshman. I think she has a shot at being the MAC Player of the Year in softball. If not, she'll definitely be on the MAC first team, not even just the second team. Not many people knew about Savannah Jo Dorsey until halfway through MAC play her freshman year, and now we know what she can do. A great example of that is she had 99 strikeouts so far this season. She's only faced 240 batters. That means she's striking out close to half the batters that come up to the plate. Opponents are batting just under 200 against her. That's below the Mendoza line. That's embarrassing in baseball, let alone in softball, where you have a lot higher batting averages over the course of a year.
Yeah, Dorsey will get a lot of the credit this year, but you cannot forget about Danielle Stein, the other pitcher in Ohio's bullpen who's going to have an excellent year. How formidable is that duo going to be for Ohio softball?
Well, Danielle Stein has 4 complete games this season. She has a sub-3 ERA. She has been pitching out of her mind, and it reminds me of a duo that you had when the softball team won the MAC championship 2 years ago, except instead of Lauren McClary being the elder person and having Savannah Jo Dorsey as the younger person, Savannah Jo Dorsey is now the older pitcher, and you have Danielle Stein. It's just a giant cycle. You have 2 great MAC pitchers for Ohio University once again this year. It's looking like another chance at a MAC tournament run.
Now, pitching's only half of the battle. What about hitting? Does Ohio softball have enough in the bats to really maybe make a run in the tournament and maybe in NCAA play?
Coming into the season, I would have said no, but 2 sophomores, both of them who were redshirted, have made a big impact this year. You have Michaela Cooper, who last season was hitting just .258, but this year is hitting over .450. She has 3 home runs, 3 doubles, and a triple. That's compared to only 24 hits. She hits for power. She gets a lot of RBIs. And then you have Taylor Saxton, who's hitting .439. She's a leadoff batter, so you're not going to see a lot of those dividends in terms of RBIs, but man, has she been able to set the table for the rest of the Bobcats.
Now we're going to switch over to men's. And the baseball team, they're struggling a little bit. They are not where they were last year. At this point last year, they were 10-6. This year, they are only 7-9. They're struggling a little bit. They just lost to Northern Kentucky. John Adrian went 3 for 4 with a double, triple, home run, 1 single short of the cycle. what's going on with the Bobcat baseball?
Well, that's the hardest 90 feet to get,
Yeah.
right? Actually, you normally hear the opposite. I think what's happening to this baseball team is something that you didn't see until later on in the season. Last season, they started off 7-0. So when you say they were 10-6 at this point last year, you have to remember that means at some point they went 3-6. The Bobcats baseball team is sub 500 right now, but they're playing teams from the South. They made a trip to Texas. They made a trip to Georgia and to Florida. These are teams that can practice during the winter. These are teams that can practice outside and have live drills. Ohio was practicing in Walter Fieldhouse. You can't have too much live action. You can't field fly balls. You can't do a lot of things indoors. That's a big struggle for this Ohio team. Once they start playing teams like Marshall, who they beat last week, or once they get into MAC tournament play beginning next weekend, you're going to notice that they're going to be playing other teams like that, and I think that their record will level out over the course of time.
And quickly, Jerry Salisbury went 1 1/3 inning, and the bullpen really had to back him, but it was too big of a hole to dig out of. Does Ohio have a pitching issue?
Ohio might not have a relieving issue, but they have really struggled in terms of starting pitching. After Jake Miller, you have not seen a lot of talent from the starters. Connor Sitz is normally a great guy. Hopefully he can turn around in MAC play. We're going to take a quick commercial break. After we come back, we are going to move indoors to the Convocation Center where we'll talk about basketball.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Clean kitchen surfaces, utensils, and hands with soapy water. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
And we're back with Ohio Sports Zone, and we are going to talk about men's basketball. Yesterday, they won an overtime thriller against Albany in the CBI, and they got help from one of the unlikeliest heroes on the hardwood. That's Treg Setti, the lone senior on this team, dropped 30 points, 10 rebounds, his 4th double-double of the year, and it looked like, he just had a look in his eye that he could not be stopped, and, he had 12 of the 17 total points of Ohio in overtime. That included back-to-back triples, 2 game-clinching free throws. It was a performance that he will never forget. He said after the game that he was not done being a Bobcat, and he proved it.
Scott, Treg said he played the stretch forward role. He was 4 for 6 from beyond the arc. He looked absolutely great last night. Normally you're looking for another player who's a forward and a MAC Player of the Year in Antonio Campbell to play that stretch forward role. He shoots over 40% from beyond the arc, but last night you have the senior going out with one last bang. Monday night, he'll have another opportunity to do that against UNC North Greensboro, and UNC North Greensboro is a little bit different than the team that they played last night in Albany. Albany was a 24-win team, way above 500. UNC North Greensboro was about 500. But their road record is what is concerning. They only had 3 wins compared to 13 losses on the road. That's a big hiccup because their tournament win was at home to get to the quarterfinal round. It might be a bit easier for the Bobcats here.
Yeah, this is definitely, it's odd because usually the team that you play in the second round is a harder team. But it appears that OU might match up much better with UNC Greensboro. The UNC Greensboro has a very bad defense. There is no other way to put it. If you look at some of the stats, they allow 73.4 points per game. That's 217th in the NCAA. They allow their opponents to shoot 43.8% from the field. That's 109th in the NCAA. On top of that, they shoot 37.3% from three-point. That's 307th. there's 346 teams in the NCAA. So it looks like OU might just have their number coming into Monday's game.
You mentioned what they shoot from beyond the arc, but I think what might be a little bit more concerning for this team is the way they shot from the charity stripe in their first tournament game. They were 50% from the free throw line. Shaq shot better, and he is the most prolific, terrible free throw shooter you can think of off the top of your head. Now, when you're looking at this team, they do have a bit of star power. There's no way you can just overlook a team and say, hey, we're in the semifinals. If we can get that semifinal win, then it's a best of three shot in the championship round. They have a freshman guard who is doing very well this year. He's done a great job in the last 6 or 7 games. Francis Alonso is averaging 13.2 points per game. He's shooting over 45% from the field. And then you have a pair of juniors, one forward, one guard, R.J. White and Deontay Baldwin. Both of them are adding not only points, where R.J. White has 12.2 and Baldwin has 11.5, but they're also adding assists and rebounds. Both average over 5 rebounds per game, and then Baldwin has 5 assists per game to go along with that. When you see that type of star power, it kind of makes sense why they won their first game. They had 4 starters in double figures. They got a lot of bench production. This is a team that can score. Remember, Ohio is one of the better scoring teams in the MAC, but Ohio's perimeter defense is very bad. You have 2 star guards on this team that could capitalize off of that.
Yeah, you talk about Francis Alonso. He had 13.2 points per game. He, as a freshman, was the leading scorer. And they have 4 players averaging over double figures. It's going to be tough on the offensive end to guard them since Ohio is not the best team defensively, and Saul Phillips has mentioned that over and over again. But it will be a high-scoring shootout, and games like that, Ohio did have a tendency to win, especially this year when it was going down the stretch.
When you look at this Ohio team, you have to think of players who can step up. Antonio Campbell did win MAC Player of the Year honors, but he's been fading a lot. In the MAC tournament, he didn't play very well. In the last 2 games of the regular season, particularly a very quiet game he had against Akron, he did not play very well. And remember, that overtime thriller against Buffalo, which was a victory at the Convocation Center, Antonio Campbell only took 1 shot from the floor in that entire game. He scored 6 points. When the Bobcats have needed Antonio recently, he hasn't come through. Is there someone you're looking for off the bench, or maybe just another starter who needs to step it up?
Well, yesterday, Saul Phillips was very disappointed in someone who usually is the most prolific passer. He's like a very hard-nosed, blue-collar guy. His name's Gavin Block. He usually comes off the bench. They call him Gavin Charge because that's what he does. He just comes in and takes charges all game. So he had a very bad game, made some very uncharacteristic passes. Saul Phillips said out of all the players, he was kind of disappointed in the way he performed. So I expect a big game from Gavin Block off the bench. And when Kenny Kaminsky, when he's on his game as well, then I don't know if there's any team in this tournament, that can beat the Bobcats.
That's right, Scott. When Kenny Kaminsky is hot, I don't know if there's a better three-point shooter in the MAC than him. Once again, Monday night at 7 is when the Bobcats are going to play their next game against UNC North Greensboro. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Once we come back, we're going to have some fun at Ohio Sports Zone. Don't go anywhere.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
I didn't see you there. Ever wonder what really happens in the world? Ever wonder what the media is keeping from you? Well, look no further than AVW's News Time for all your answers. Ohio University's most reliable source of unreliable news. All news, all the time, none of the facts. All made possible by AVW Productions. You could trust us. We're professionals. Hello
Hello and welcome to Bobcat Bigger, the OSZ game show where we ask our contestants to name the most popular responses to the surveys we asked various people throughout AVW week. This side, let's meet our contestants. On this side, we have Team OSZ featuring John Kosis and Scott McDonald, our anchors tonight. And on this side, we have joining us our lovely guests from Fridays Live, our producer Marissa and director Ashley. Well, let's get started then. Let me see John Kosis and Marissa Donovan. All right, so we have 6 answers on the board right now. The question that we asked was, who is the most recognizable Bobcat athlete on campus?
I'm going to have to go with Treg Setti here. He had 30 points and 10 rebounds last night. He's a senior, fan favorite.
Treg Setti's a good answer. Marissa, do you have anything to say?
Honestly, I just thought there was going to be free food, so.
Well, we can't really take that as an answer, but Treg Setti's a good one. Put up 30 points. Only senior on the basketball team. Let me see Treg Setti. Excellent. There you go. There you go. Okay, let's go on over to Team OSZ. How are you guys doing tonight?
Oh, it's a beautiful night to be on Ohio Sports Zone.
Okay, excellent. Okay, well, let's see. Right now, I'm going to ask the same question, and you're going to answer. Who is the most popular, most recognizable Bobcat athlete on campus? Scott?
I'm going to go with Antonio Campbell, MAC Player of the Year, averaged 18 points, averaged 10 rebounds, double-double. First player since DJ Cooper to win the MAC Player of the Year. It's got to be Antonio Campbell.
Antonio Campbell is a good one. I mean, MAC Player of the Year. What's more recognizable than that? Let me see Antonio Campbell. There you go. There you go. 2 in a row. Not doing too bad so far. Let's see. Okay. Let's see if we can go 3 for 3. Okay. Once again, who's the most recognizable Bobcat athlete on campus?
I'll say Savannah Jo Dorsey. She did have an off year, but then coming back, she's been one of the best players. She's gotten a lot of recognition around the league in both her freshman year and now her redshirt sophomore year.
Yeah, she's been pitching fantastic lately. Best player on the softball team, in my opinion. Most recognizable player. We'll see. Let me see Savannah Jo Dorsey. There we go. There we go. Okay. Moving on to Scott once more. Who's the most recognizable player, athlete on the Bobcats?
Something's telling me to go with Darius Vick. I don't know what it is. It's an internal instinct. I'm going to go with Darius Vick.
Darius Vick, good one. Number 15, QB. One of the captains of our own football team. Let's see if it is. Let me see. Darius Vick. Wow. Here we go. Knocking down them all. John Kosis. That's not right. Question didn't change. Who's the most recognizable Bobcat athlete on campus?
I'll move over to baseball, and I'll say Jake Miller. He's a senior, starting pitcher. Last year played the closer role during the MAC tournament. Ended up getting some trophies and hardware for the Bobcats. So Jake Miller.
I mean, they won the MAC last year. Trying to do so this year. They're going to have a little work to do, but it's a good answer. Let's see him. Ooh. First one wrong. Wow. I'm sorry, but you got one more X, and then we'll have to move back over to Team Fridays Live. Let's see what we got here. Question, once again, didn't change. Who's the most recognizable Bobcat athlete on campus?
I'm going to have to go with Deron Simmons, point guard OU, leads the country in assists, one of the leaders. Transfer from Houston, definitely one of the most recognizable faces here at Ohio University.
He's been fantastic all year. Well, you know the drill. Let's see him. Oh, another X. We're going to have to go over to Team Fridays Live and see what they have to say. All right, well, you guys said you didn't really know much about sports, but the question stands. Who's the most recognizable Bobcat athlete on campus?
Rufus? We're going to go with Rufus.
Rufus, like the mascot. Like,
Yeah.
the question asks Bobcat athlete.
Oh, we know.
All right, well, they don't mascots usually typically don't play sports, but let's see Rufus the Bobcat if he's up there. Wow. Okay. Rufus the Bobcat is the correct answer. And okay. Do you guys have anything to plug while you're here?
Yeah, actually, tomorrow we have a very special episode. It's going to be an hour-long cast reunion show. So we're bringing back previous cast members to act with current cast members. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be in Studio C at 8 p.m. So you really should come.
Well, there we go. And the winners again. Team Friday is live. When we get back, our audience will step up to the plate and ask our anchors questions. Stay tuned.
That's low. That's low and below the top. Seriously.
Looking for these? You drive buzzed. It could be one very expensive ride.
First, you gotta make bail. Then pay me to get your car back.
Your insurance premiums will go through the roof.
And my legal fees just keep adding up. All told, it could end up costing you $10,000.
Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Toucan Sam.
What's it take to get some hunky construction equipment up in here, huh?
I hope you're joking.
I think we need to follow the advice of Jesus and get down, girl. Go ahead, get down.
Please state your name and the role you're auditioning for.
Hi, my name is Christopher Walken.
What if it is Loch Ness Monster?
I mean, I got some shopping to do at Whole Foods, but I'll join in.
But to my captain.
I'm right. I knew I was right.
Hello, welcome back to Ohio Sports Zone. I'm John Kosas alongside Scott McDonald, and right now we're giving the audience a chance to step up to the plate and ask Scott and I some very important Bobcat sporting questions. Are you guys ready? Let's do it.
How you doing? Bob Lung here. Huge fan of you, John and Scott. Listen to you all the time. First time ever been on a TV, if it isn't obvious. Obviously, the MAC didn't go well. The tournament didn't go well for the basketball team. You guys fell a little short, just like Akron did against Buffalo. You have the MAC Player of the Year coming back next year. What do you think your chances are for OU basketball heading into 2016-17?
I think the sky is the limit for the Bobcats basketball team beginning next year. Antonio Campbell, as a junior, won the MAC Player of the Year. The only other Ohio University Bobcat to win it as an underclassman was Gary Trent. He ended up winning it 3 times, and then afterwards had an NBA draft. And the last time a player was drafted from Ohio University was in the early 90s, Gary Trent. The other thing to look at is how young this team is. You're graduating one senior, Treg Setti, and while he played well last night, Treg Setti hasn't been your most prolific starter all season long. What I would look at, though, is Jerron Simmons continuing to develop, Antonio Campbell continuing to develop, and a couple guys off the bench, specifically Wadley Montprier. I feel like if Wadley can start gaining some weight, he would be a very big presence on the block. We already know he's a good scorer. He could add to his defensive game over the offseason, though.
Yeah, and also he's missed someone. Kenny Kaminsky is also coming back. He's going to be a senior, transferred in from Michigan State last year. If he finally gets on the ball, he's going to be also another weapon in this Ohio offense. Next question.
What are the realistic chances that Ohio will win the CBI?
I think at this point there is a very, very good chance. You got to look at the teams that are left: Morehead State, Duquesne, and then we have to get by UNC Greensboro first, which we talked about earlier is not a very good team, especially defensively. I think Ohio can exploit them, and we'll have a lot of mismatches in that game. But then after that, the CBI does get a little tricky because it is not a set bracket. After the quarterfinals, they, for whatever reason, just toss up the seeds and mix it all up again. So it will be interesting to see who we play after that, whether it is Morehead State or Seattle. It's going to be interesting. However, we did come in with the highest RPI in the tournament, and so I think that is a good justification on why we will do very well coming up in the rest of the CBI tournament.
Another thing to add to that is that the two headliners of the tournament were Ohio and Albany. It just so happened that they were the first two teams to face off in the 16-team tournament. You already defeated the other toughest team. Now you just have to be mentally tough enough to get through the next couple of games.
So why is the baseball team underperforming from last year?
Well, I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. They're playing a lot of teams from the South, a lot of teams who have been able to practice outdoors. This baseball team hasn't been able to practice outdoors in the recent months, which means they have some catch-up to play. When they played just last weekend, and actually just last night when they lost in extra innings, they lost by 1 run. They allowed 3 unearned runs. That's off of errors, 2 of which were charged to the starting pitcher who only went 1 1/3 innings. That's Jerry Salisbury. That is definitely a problem that's going to have to be fixed, but the more grounders you're taking on actual dirt, the more fly balls you're getting in the outfield, the easier that's going to be and the more they'll come along.
Yeah, and it is still very young in the season. We're only 16 games in. Last year, this is when Ohio really started to get rolling through MAC play, through the MAC tournament. So there's still a lot of time for the younger players to grow, to develop, and for the senior leaders to kind of like have these guys get on their back and ride them through MAC tournament play.
Can Savannah Jo Dorsey win MAC Player of the Year?
I really do believe that she can win MAC Player of the Year. We've said this stat on air already. 99 strikeouts for Savannah. 240 total batters faced. Opponents last weekend were batting just 138 against Savannah Jo Dorsey in 3 appearances, 2 starts, 17 1/3 innings. That's a sizable chunk of a season, 17 1/3 innings for her. She pitched 130 innings in her largest season. Savannah is looking very good right now, and she has a good supporting cast when you're looking at Danielle Stein as that second starter for the softball team. That takes a lot of pressure off of a good pitcher. Savannah Jo Dorsey's biggest problem last year, the reason she got injured, is because she was playing every single game for the Bobcats, and she ended up tearing her bicep because she was working too hard. She was trying to do too much with what she had. This year she can take a step back and she can just let the game come to her. I think she's going to have a very successful season, and I'll make the bold prediction. She will win MAC Player of the Year.
Yeah, and I agree. When she was second team All-MAC 2 years ago, what she did not have was that workhorse next to her that was pitching on off days when she was rehabilitating her arm. This year she has Danielle Stein. She's going to be much better this year, and I agree. I think she will be the pitcher of the year.
All right, now that is all the time we have for Ohio Sports Zone this week. Next week we'll come back, same time, same place, 9 p.m. on Thursday. Thanks for tuning in. For Scott McDonald, I'm John Kostis. Good night, everybody.